The previous man talked about this stuff that he is trying to streamline. Right?
Yeah.
Because there were a couple of side deals that was found.
We're definitely qualified. Yeah.
Yeah, no, but it's like you learn these things. So I don't know, if they didn't get approval from that, then I guess, all the person we talked to them. And we can go to second. So no, you're actually.
I haven't heard from Joe. I'll try to. Tomorrow. Yay, okay. Welcome to the July meeting of the North Main Street Task Force. I am Constance Law, representing Julie Reed. Can you please take the roll? Chair Antoine. Present. Vice Chair Canadian.
Present.
Lieutenant Brown.
Present.
Marissa Lopes. Is absent. Rachel Peterson. Present. Peter Kamara.
Here.
Tom Stadway is absent. Sarah Evil. Absent. Jessica Lance. Present. Nate Ursa.
I'm here.
Sean Regan is absent. And Rosie Joshua is absent. We have 7 present and 5 absent. Awesome, thank you so much. Before we get started with the formal agenda, just because people again have asked for this when they watch on Zoom. Generally, it's clear, people are watching this on Zoom. If we could just go around the table and say our names and like what organization we're with, that helps the people on Zoom and later. So again, I'm Sue Law, I'm a city councilor from Ward 3 and chair of this committee.
Lieutenant Bill Brown, Providence, please.
I'm Rachel Peterson, I'm a Ward 3 resident.
Nate Urso, I manage Providence traffic engineering.
Jessica Lance, I'm the Director of Special Projects in the Planning Department.
Peter Camera, I own Salem, on the fields.
My name is David Shine, I'm the current law department.
Before we keep going, we are on mute. No, oh, no, we're not. Come on. Rebecca Kids like so she can't hear us. Anyway, let's keep going. We'll figure it out. It looks like we're not on mute. Unless it's been out of. No. Oh,
It's got power. The lights on.
yeah, the lights on, the mute button is enough. Okay, well, we'll figure it out. Okay, keep going. Sorry, I didn't want to, we were having the mute button on.
Commissioner I'm from policy notes for the city. Current Evola, I'm the assistant clerk in the city clerk's office.
Claire Gerard, clerk liaison, city clerk department, clerk of the committee.
Jamie Fabian, I'm the vice chair of the task force and representing the Providence Streets Coalition.
Excellent. Rebecca says it's better now, so I don't know what we did, but yay. Thanks, Rebecca. I think it worked to be here on my team for joining the solicitor's office. Thank you so much. And then Sarah couldn't be here, but she sent Zach over to us, so we do have Richard present. So thank you for being here, Zach. I appreciate And let's get going. Can we please read item number 1 of the agenda?
Updates on progress and information since the last meeting.
Awesome. So I have a few quick updates. Want to see if anybody else does as well. So a few quick things. In the meantime, since the last meeting, Sean, Nate, and I, and Kyle and Trish met together to talk about particularly Doyle and what funding is available for the Main Street of Doyle. The State Traffic Commission did hear recommendations for some fixes for that street. Mayor and I sent a letter asking them to approve said fixes to that area. So there will be some changes to the Doyle and North Main Street intersection in the short term. So not like total redo of that whole intersection, because as we know, that's a very challenging intersection, but there will be some changes to lanes and things like that, and I'll make sure we get the act on that. When Sean's here, he can kind of describe it better than I can. He's on vacation, but that was approved at last week's traffic commission. So that is awesome. Not on that list, but will be included in some of the fixes. Will also be some additional, adding, because there's none now, like reflectors and stuff in the median, so that people can see the median and stuff at night. So that didn't need to be approved by the traffic commission, but right up, we still said that they will just go ahead and implement that over the course of the summer. And the other update I have, which will be more of an update in September when we come back, but Kyle, Trish, and I are working with Director Arzamanian from Public Property. We've secured some funding for replacing some of the lighting. So not putting in new poles, because that is, whoa, you guys, that's so expensive. But like replacing some of the heads on key intersections so that that can cover more of the crosswalks to increase lighting at night. And so we should be able to be working on that over the course of the summer. But hope I will have a better update and maybe just be like, hey, go check it out when I see you guys in September. So we'll be working on that in the next few weeks, but that was something we were able to do. Those were my 2 main updates. I don't know if anyone else had anything they wanted to share before we move to our awesome presentation.
Nice couple questions about it. So for the lane changes and things. Do you
Yeah.
know, like a rough timeline on when?
I know.
Okay, and is that work going to be done by RIDOT?
Yes.
Okay. And then I guess on the lighting thing, great that some stuff's gonna happen. We definitely have some intersections that won't help because there are no poles nearby. Does anybody like around the table have any thoughts or knowledge of like potential funding sources for expensive stuff like putting up new poles where we need them? Like, how does that ever happen?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, some of the bigger changes will come when we start working on like the STIP money and the earmark money, I assume. But we can keep our eyes open for other sources of funding. This is like money that we look at quick.
Yeah,
So
oh, sure.
like, yeah, quick
My
stuff.
thought on that long term would be, if you're talking about drastic changes to the roadway, you're gonna have to move some of those judgments anyway. So I don't know,
Yeah.
I would think that maybe it would be better to wait and see what the final plan is.
Yeah, to add.
Because if you're talking
Pretty
about shifting
expensive
some
to add.
things, or building bump outs and stuff, you're gonna be having to move some things there.
Yeah. And adding in the poles is both expensive and because there's coordination with utilities, apparently quite high. They are not fast.
But like eventually, right, we have intersections where there isn't a pole within 150 feet, like something's gonna have to be put
Yeah.
there. Intersection. Okay. Keep it on the radar.
Yeah. Any other? Cool. Please read item number 2 into print.
Presentation on transit oriented development and road smart Main Street initiative. Presentation by John Flaherty and William People, road smart RI.
So I'm so excited that John and Jillian have come to talk with us today. So we've talked for a little bit about transit oriented development here on the committee. We've talked a little bit about like, you know, I feel like we keep being like North Main Street, it could really be something, you know? And parts of it really are, like near where the sandwich hut is, like there are some really great things happening. But thought it would be great to have John and Jillian come talk about transit oriented development, some of the work they're doing. So if you guys wanted to come up, and while they're doing that, I also remembered one other update I forgot to give. We reopened the 9th Street courts, which are right off of North Main Street. They are beautiful. Through parks, we built these like beautiful murals on the 9th Street courts. They're right behind Sandwich Hut. So right off North Main. I love that we brought some beauty like really close to North Main. So go check it out. It's basketball, tennis, and pickleball. And some really creative people have already created kind of a little handball section, which was not intended. There was some planks up to cover where the trash was. People made their own Handball, that's awesome. Providence residents are gonna look for those balls. So, but if you guys would like to come join us at the table, and Claire has a clicker. But feel free just to take it away, and if you want people to ask questions during, that's great. If you want them to wait to the end, whatever works for you, I am here for you.
My part's interactive.
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Maybe. I'm gonna go first. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Jillian Finkel. I'm the Director of Special Projects for Grow Smart Rhode Island. Thank you so much for having us here today. I'm going to talk first about our Main Street initiative and then hand it off to my colleague, John Flaherty, to talk about transit-oriented development. I am pretty aware that you have two kind of objectives in your task force. One being safety, and the other one being this idea of doing more like a traditional Main Street. So that ties into an initiative that we've been working on for the past couple of years, trying to start a statewide coordinating Main Street program that would align with a national organization called Main Street America. And so Counselor Annabaugh just asked us to give you an update about that and get you thinking about the future and how it might fit into your work and thinking. So, okay, that was so it's not.
Yeah. The side one there.
Okay, so to start, just interested, this is the interactive portion. How about you tell me an example of what you think of when you think of a Main Street location? Could be here in Rhode Island, in Providence, or anywhere. Just throw it up. Don't be shy, guys.
I think on the, well, I live in Boston, and I'm living in Newbury Street. So,
All right, Newbury Street, what up?
Places you wanna pop into shop, restaurant.
Hope Village, Hope Street through Rochambeau to Fifth.
Okay, Hope Street.
I think I get two images. One is like places like that or smaller town main streets that feel quiet and have shops. And then I think I also think of like kind of hellish landscapes with lots and lots of cars and crazy traffic where like as a pedestrian, you feel incredibly vulnerable, which you can frequently find more in big cities or cities in general.
Up North Main Street. And I don't think like necessarily something called Main Street, right? I'm thinking of the shorthand that we use when we think of Main Street. So, any other?
People in the audience.
Yeah.
I think a lot of different people, different ages and backgrounds.
Okay, yeah. All right, well, I had a couple of thoughts. One was Oak Street, you know, thinking of Providence, or Fair Street, or places with lots of shops popping in, restaurants, right? Or Kentucky Village, just one I happen to know and have the Gatsby Day Parade, so, anyway, so what are some of the characteristics of a Main Street? When we think about traditional Main Street. So we said shopping and dining, we talked about people of different age groups. If it's too big, then it's dangerous. Anything else that you think is kind of characteristic of Main Streets in general? People centered. People centered, okay. What else?
I think like you might go there for multiple things. So you're not just going there for a particular store. It's a place that you could spend some time, wander around a bit.
So like a density of experiences. Yeah.
I think of things being like locally owned, like it's not just like a mall where like everybody, you know, there's the J. Crew and the blah, 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 and the Lululemon, whatever. It's like, it's more like Hope Street where it's like the people live in the vibe.
Yeah.
A little bit of a community hub maybe, where you maybe expect to bump into people from the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah, so tell me, why would you say you want North Main Street to be more like this traditional Main Street you just described?
Yeah, go ahead.
Super convenient, to just walk down one street, have a hardware store, and a grocery store, and a restaurant and cafe, and once you run into your friend. It's nice. It's just nice to have on your body and it makes it a lot more.
Yes.
Inviting, like if I can walk to a hardware store, that actually sounds kind of pleasant, whereas getting in my car and driving to people, it sounds awful.
Well, yeah, healthier lifestyle from when you are. No, that's so true. Yeah.
It's kind of interesting, like, the second Providence, but it's like very accessible, but I think people kind of go there.
Okay. Well, and the bus line is what makes it accessible too, that it's right there. It's so easy to get on and off for stuff.
I think, it creates an environment of, to slow traffic down. Because there's a lot of activity there with pedestrians, shopping, parking. You know, people expect to just, it's an environment they would necessarily just slow down. Even without infrastructure, that makes them slow down. So,
Yeah.
North Main, I also think there's like a whole community that lives just up the hill from North Main. There's an Hope neighborhood, there's the Summit neighborhood. There's so many people who like walk to Hope, could walk to North Main, that don't. And then there's the huge park there that like is underutilized because it's also sanitary, but like people could be using it if they weren't like terrified of crossing. There's also a community, just say that there's also a community right on the other side of North Main Street, the western side. That like when I talk to folks who live there, they feel like completely disconnected from the rest of the east side, and then there's like the highway on the other side. So like having that be more like a place where they can walk and get some food and blah blah blah, like would tie the community together to ensure that they're currently isolated.
I thought someone said.
More fiscally resilient. Far more. Tax. It's
Oh my gosh, you guys are saying everything that I wanted to say. So why is Gross Park, Rhode Island interested in pursuing Main Street? Why is there a national organization dedicated to it? These are, I mean, a lot of the things that you just said. So, one, the actual physical built environment was designed, originally to be a center of commerce and community gathering. So it's well suited to serve that function. Safety being primary goal of Main Streets, because they are dense and there's people and usually they're narrow. And if it's a place like, I think someone was saying, where you would go and spend a lot of time, it's a place to go to, not just a place to drive through. And building that sense of community, building, like where you see your neighbors, right? You have these third places to interact, and having some sort of, if we take it a step further, which we'll talk about in a minute, to having an organization around that place, also gives you a way to connect with, a structure to connect with your community. And all these things are being shown to, we've talked about the epidemic of loneliness and isolation. So building a physical environment that promotes social connection is really good for our well-being, not just our emotional well-being, but if you think about in times of disaster, having that community to rely on with each other has been shown to produce better health outcomes. So it also creates a sense of identity that has also been linked to well-being, of that identity of place and feeling that connection. And the small business you mentioned about not just national chain stores, but our local businesses. Really, this Main Street environments are really supportive of that, and having an organized Main Street effort in a place. It primarily, or one of its primary functions, is to support the small businesses, and also providing opportunities for new entrepreneurs that tend to have, these places tend to have lower barriers of entry for new businesses, and then creating a desirable place, not just for the residents, but should be visitors or businesses, because it is human scale, I think someone mentioned, and really the number one indicator of how to get people to come to a place and stay in a place is other people. So if you're creating a place where people are, will attract more people, which is good for the businesses and also good for the community building. And as far as smart growth goes, it certainly is, makes economic sense to, and environmental sense to concentrate these activities in this area. And as you said, it if you look at the tax revenue per acre, in different parts of cities, you'll see that these main streets and downtowns produce much more, economic activity for the city, so, it's good for everyone, really. So I just added some photos, of some of our places around Rhode Island that, you know, are just, we have this going on in Newport, that's East Greenwich and Warren, and then also Warwick, right? These are places for commerce, for social connection and gathering. And here is a picture that, it puts into graphic format their tax revenue per acre. This is from a company called Urban 3, and they do these analyses of places where the amount of tax revenue per acre is shown vertically. So you can see clearly where the downtown of this area is, and I think this is Lafayette, Louisiana. And then the bands of higher activity that go out from the downtown are the main streets. So if you're going to make economic development investments, you build on your assets of what things are already working, those are great opportunities to focus on. Oh, sorry. All right. So I was thinking, Ken. This is a video from Main Street America. If we
So there was one.
So it's embedded.
Oh. You want me to try and see? Do we know how to, yeah, how to.
I did see a volume thing at one point. Little
Go,
icon.
can't touch the volume.
Oh.
You'll have an hour.
Ah. This video is available online if, I just think it so perfectly captures, what a focus on Main Street as far as the state and city or a neighborhood could have, and the value of doing that. So I wanted to share it with.
Let me see, one sec, let me try one more thing. How do we get out of there? Oh, there we go, okay. There we go. Okay. Oh, wait, I know, hold on, figured it out, I think, hold on, okay. Let's just share.
Oh, I know what you can do. There's like a button.
Yeah, there's a, yeah, you can share. That, there we go.
Got it.
Thanks.
Oh,
Okay, let's try it again.
oh, I know what you can do.
There's a reason
Yeah,
people
there's
call
a-
Myrtle Beach
Okay, sorry.
the beach. Here, you become your best self.
Oh.
Okay, let's try it again.
There's a reason people call Myrtle Beach
Yeah,
the beach. Here, you become your best self.
And maybe that's a more efficient
Yeah, maybe,
way.
sorry about this. Let's try it again.
Wait, that's somebody's.
There's a reason people call Myrtle
Yeah,
Beach
sorry.
the beach.
Does everyone have to
You
promise
become
me
your
to go
best
watch
self.
it?
And maybe
Like
that's more
4 minutes
efficient, yeah,
only,
maybe
and it
sorry about
really
this.
will convince you that we need this in our life.
Okay, sorry, Claire, I really thought I was going to do it, but I was wrong. Oh no, how do I get back to the? Sorry, my bad. I left it all on you guys. I thought the sheriff's sound was like, what was gonna work? John, you were with me.
I've been there, I've been there.
So like I said, it's a video that was produced by Main Street America. That's the national organization that's been leading this movement since 1980. They have set up these statewide coordinating programs in 41 other states. We very much want Rhode Island to have one. We would be absolutely willing to serve as the entity doing that. And if you go to just mainstreet.org, right on their front page of their website, you can access this video And it is also in the,
Yeah, which is on the portal, so if you link to this on the portal, you can see it. Sorry
Yeah.
about that.
oh, no problem. So you can, yeah, we can go to
Got
the
it.
next one.
Main streets are the heart of our community.
All right, and we'll just skip that.
Main Street
Okay, so, so since 1980, Main Street America has identified how to make a place that is a commercial district work effectively as a place. And, they've landed on these 4 points. And so the 4 elements that go into a commercial district working well, first includes the built environment itself. So starting there, great. So that would be the design point, the green point. So it does mean safety in the road, and it does mean the buildings and the sidewalks and the trees and anything that is in the physical environment. That's 1 point. The second point, economic vitality, refers to the businesses themselves and offering support for them, as well as the entrepreneurial ecosystem. I think Rhode Island does that really well. And we have a lot to offer to our small businesses as far as supporting their actual business. The orange point is labeled promotion. That's really all of the communications, storytelling, and the events, all of that kind of work about a place, which may be a website or a newsletter or a block party. All of that falls under the orange promotion point. And then the yellow point is for organization, because all of this stuff takes work. And a lot of times, if you're not intentional about doing that work, it's not necessarily going to get done. So in Main Street America, they have developed a structure, a framework for the organization for getting that work done, where the orange level would be a statewide program that would then support all the work at the local level. And you could have a local Main Street program focused on a specific place. But you could also have a merchants association that wants to do the work that a Main Street program would do, and that's great. Or maybe it's a neighborhood association, or maybe it is a friends group, or it might be actually a municipal staff person. Like, there are lots of ways to get the work done. But there have to be people and whose job it is to do it, even if they're volunteers whose job it is to do it. So of course, long-term, if it's someone's paid job, it gets done more consistently. So, so Connecticut is a model we've been looking at to implement here in Rhode Island. I put this page up to kind of explain what we would do as the state level program. Since that's what we're working on getting started, it would mean offering training and education programs or technical assistance, providing resources, managing communications networks, having joint advocacy if there's common problems that need to be solved from the whole network, celebrating success, all of these like elements. A lot of what Grow Smart Rhode Island already has done in other specific areas, but we're looking to really expand the focus on Main Street through this program. And one thing to mention is that it's been proven to work. So Main Street America has been tracking data as far as investments made in their districts or new jobs created, new businesses created. And so it's really remarkable. And it really has been shown to work. So like I said, we want to bring it here and thinking about how you all might think about it within your role as a task force. If there is some kind of place-based group that comes out of your work, whether it's a Main Street program or whether it's a merchants association or whatever they might call themselves, if they are there, or if some of you kind of become that for a little while, then you can engage. You can join Main Street America. It's a reasonable amount of money that gives you access to all of their programming. I think for one membership, you get three individual logins. You can come to our events. Like I said, we're just getting started doing actual programming, but we do have we have virtual roundtables every month. The next one is August 1st at noon. We'll be talking about street trees. So, you can come participate in what we're doing, even though right now it's pretty small. We're just getting going. Set up ways to communicate and maybe start with some events that would engage the business community. So if you want to look at an example, the Downtown Woonsocket Collaborative has been really effective with just a group of volunteers. They've been working since 2015 through Main Street America as just an individual entity. They have a holiday stroll that gets people into the businesses. They do a bunch of different events. So
They've had great success bringing down the vacancy rate along their Main Street, the commercial vacancy rate. From about, I think it was about 50% to below 18%.
I don't know if that actually works with them. Actually.
Oh,
I
really?
really was something with all the time with the data. It's like.
oh, wow. Yeah. So, and there's just more pictures of this group.
Okay. So, thank you again for having us. I'm gonna actually stand up and just move around a little bit.
Yeah, do what you gotta do.
Yeah. And so I get to have the fun part about talking about transit-oriented development, which I think that you all have probably spent some time already thinking and planning for, but just the same. So I always say it's best, even though we may know what it is, it's always good to start with a definition so that we're on the same page. So we see it as a planning strategy that aims to create compact, mixed-use communities in proximity to high-quality public transportation. And then they design walkable, cyclable, easy access to jobs and all of life's essentials. So one of the things that I like most about TOD is that it's an example of something that I think is 1 + 1 = 5. So you make an investment in two things, transportation and housing, but it yields such a benefit for the community. Starting with lowering greenhouse gas emissions. One of the things that I think when people hear about development or projects being proposed, when there's opposition, the thing that you oftentimes hear is people resist, they don't want the traffic, the congestion, right? And those are legitimate concerns. One of the benefits with TOD is that it's much less dependent upon cars. It doesn't mean that people aren't going to own a car to live there, but it's just you rely less on them. So it tends to allow the growth in housing that we know we need, not just in Providence, but elsewhere. But it does so in a way that it doesn't create the Carmageddon. Second is it's an increase in efficient, it supports increase in efficient housing production because it's location efficient. So one example is, and this is a project that's in Pawtucket that the city approved a 180 unit development adjacent to the train station, but they did it with only about 70 parking spaces. And the reason that it's important, aside from wanting to reduce emissions, is that absent that, and I know that you all have done this in Providence when you brought down the minimum parking requirements, but one of the huge benefits is that it lowers the cost of building the development to begin with. Because if you're building in an urban environment, and you've got to provide a lot of parking, that usually means you've got to do structured parking. Structured parking is about $50,000 per space. So you add that up over the number of units, and all of a sudden a project doesn't pencil that might otherwise have if you didn't have to have so much parking. And you can actually yield the kind of unit production that we need to achieve in the state. We're not going to win the housing battle because, lots of, doubles their housing production, right? It's just not gonna, we're gonna get it because of the urban communities, the urban green community. The third is just why many of you are here, right? It helps to create a more pedestrian, cycling friendly environment. More people, I think you mentioned that. It just helps with slowing down traffic. And that comes with all the placemaking things that Jillian was talking about. Increase economic activity. I'm going to talk about that in a second. And then one of the things that few people think about. We think about it more and more these days because we're working closely with the Department of Health, but public health. So lowering asthma rates, less congestion, less emissions, increased physical activity. You can walk to the hardware store instead of getting in a car to go to it. And it becomes a part of your daily routine, and it just contributes to healthier people. So we tend to think sometimes of TOD as around train stations, these nodes. This is the common thread district and Pawtucket and Central Falls around the train station. Other examples of more of the nodal type of development is City Center Warwick around the train station there. Which this is a bad picture to put up because it doesn't really serve justice with the kind of development that they've been seeing in Warwick. I was trying to find a better picture, but you have to use your imagination. And of course, in downtown Providence. And then this was happening before there were TOD programs, right? Downtown. But it's not just in these nodal areas around train stations, it's along corridors. And one example is this Market to Metacom initiative in the town of Warren, because they've got a lot of their homes and businesses are flooding, like significantly. So they're taking a very proactive approach toward retreating, that they're gonna move businesses and people from Market Street area to Metacom, which they've got lots of opportunity along Metacom. It's dominated right now by a lot of big box stores, a lot of surface parking, and so they've already been changing their zoning to allow it to become more dense. And of course, North Main Street, another great example of corridor that's served by high frequency transit with the R line every 10 minutes. And we think that there's a lot of opportunity in Providence as well. So we can't really have TOD without the T in TOD. And even though we have a very forward-looking vision for the future of transit in our state, we've been slow as a state to provide the funding to implement it. And this is not an inexpensive proposition. No one's saying that it's cheap, but it's an example of an investment that has been made in many other places around our country and certainly around the world. And we know that if we make that investment, I mean, right now, I think it's safe to say that a narrow slice of our population utilizes transit. And in some cases, it's because it's not a rational choice for some people. If they consider how long it's going to take them to get from point A to point B, the convenience of that, transfers and all that. It's not the most convenient, and so therefore, a lot of people who use it may not have a choice. They may not have access to a car. But we know that by increasing the frequency, increasing the hours of service, so people can get back from a second shift job, making transfers more convenient, that it becomes the rational choice. But we need to convince the decision makers in our state to actually put up the funding to implement a plan that has been adopted by the state through a process that's been thoroughly vetted both by the public and by decision makers. So we really do need the team in order for, I think for developers to have a lot more interest in doing TOD development. Along those lines, if you look at so many of the other plans we have in the state, this is an example of state's economic development strategy. It was recently adopted. It's replete with references to the importance of connectivity, both active transportation and public transportation. And it's in that. I would suggest that if you haven't become familiar with it, take a look at it because there's a lot of reference points in it to that. Just as one in particular, this is an objective of the plan, invest in innovative design and land use approaches, including supporting municipalities, implementing smart development initiatives and TOD. Another very important plan in the state, this was updated in 2022, the state's climate plan. Again, makes the case we need to be investing in transit. And the transit master plan did indicate that at full implementation, which will be over a 20-year period, and I'll ask Zach to just jump in whenever he he wants to raise his hand, but, that plan identified that at full implementation, that implementing this plan would achieve 80% of the state's goal for vehicle miles traveled reductions, VMT. We need to bring the vehicle miles traveled down, and this plan, because by implementing it, more people would say, yeah, that now is the rational way for me to get more. And it's also a way for people to save a lot on household expenses. The top two household expenses in this order is housing and transportation. So if we're talking about a family that owns 3 cars, maybe they could drop one. Not, when this is not about telling people to get rid of your cars. But it may give folks the opportunity to do that, go from 3 to 2 or 2 to 1. For every car that you drop, it puts about $10,000 to $12,000 back into the family budget. And that's not insignificant. But we are not, as a state, going to achieve the next benchmark for the Akron climate, which is a legally mandated target for reducing greenhouse gas emissions, without a significant investment in transit and motion. And then, of course, the ARC plan, which is great. And,
To hear that and Jessica.
yes. And from what I can tell, from 2014, there were a lot of changes that were made, consistent with accommodating TOD, reducing the parking requirements, allowing for increased density in proximity to transit. I don't know if you all see further need for revisions to that to make it, you've probably been talking to developers.
Through the comp plan update that we just finished, like
Right.
more of that is coming.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's great. Just curious, have you had discussions with developers who are interested in North Main Street, but have raised concern because of certain barriers?
When we did the corridor study, we talked with folks like, like Parkinato and those folks who do some development. We were like, well, why aren't you doing this kind of development? And, it comes down to, labor, land cost, how much you're getting on your return. And then just a lot of things that we heard was like, there's a lot of land up here that's owned by people who don't want to give it up and don't want to do anything with it. So, that's probably the biggest barrier.
And then this is like this may be my final slide, is, talking about 2 things that are active right now, or going to be active. One is this high capacity, transit alternatives analysis, which, Rick is getting underway with, I believe, in September. Because you may recall, for those who are familiar with the transit master plan, that it calls for a high capacity corridor, transit corridor from Central Falls to CCRI Warwick, or from Providence to the airport. But the transit master plan is, in some ways, it's like a comprehensive community plan, right? It's the broad overarching goals, strategies, objectives, but then you still have to do more in-depth study. And that's what this is to determine, because the transit master plan said it could either be a light rail system or it could be bus rapid transit. So they're going to do the much more detailed cost benefit analysis to determine which is the right path. And then we're really happy to see that it's just applied, and we're very glad to send a letter of support for another grant, which, by the way, they've been very successful getting grants. It's one of the few ways that Rick has been able to make progress in implementing the transit master plan. This one is to do TOD planning along those corridors. So this represents an opportunity for the city as well. The final thing, that was the final thing, is that to the point about developers and working with them and having incentives, the US DOT has some very substantial financial incentives for transit-oriented development by way of capital that they can lend at very low interest rates. With one of the challenges with doing development is higher interest rates and trying to make a project pencil. So they've got 2 programs in particular. I believe that they are restricted to projects that are within a 1/4 mile of train station. But you can gain access in partnership with transit agency. You can gain access to very, very low interest rates to help support the private development, commercial, residential. And this is where we're going. And so I think it's great that the city has been as proactive as it's been, looking at the opportunity for TOD and making the changes to outdated zoning to not only accommodate it, but to encourage it. So that's what I had to say. I'd be happy to have any discussion or questions that folks have on either Main Street or TOD. They kind of do go hand in hand.
And I did forget to mention how supportive the city has been of our Main Street work as well.
Why don't we start with, task force members, who have any questions or comments, and then we can move to members of the general public. Do any task force members have questions or comments? Yeah, please.
I wanted to ask if, I agree, just to mention that one of the barriers to development on North Main Street, the kind of development you're talking about, which sounds great. I think, most of the people in this room would agree that that's where you want to get to, is large property owners not developing their property or thinking that developing the property in this way makes sense. Do you have any thoughts or advice on engaging with some of those large property owners to, you have examples of other main streets where that has been successful? Because we don't have as downtown as, for example, a developer who is willing to really invest in care and, revitalize historic buildings and support over a long period of time. And that's what we don't have that. So,
Yeah, now it's a great question, and this Providence isn't the first and won't be the last city to contend with properties that maybe somebody's just sitting on and they don't want to do anything with it.
It's like the #1 barrier to development identified by Main Street programs around the country.
Yeah. And maybe Jillian, you should jump in, but I'm somewhat familiar with some programs that exist where a community can adopt a policy where if a property is vacant or not being utilized, rather than it sitting there vacant, you can actually assess a higher fee or tax as a disincentive to having it sit there doing nothing. And I'm not an expert in that.
Council looked at that at one time, right?
Yeah, I think so. In the tax commission that Councilman Ryan chaired in the last fall, this came up a little bit for other things of like, your tax at the value, there's the commercial tax rate and the tax at like the current use. So like the vacant lot across from the parlor, the current use of that is a vacant lot. And so they pay the commercial rate on that empty lot. And so they're not paying as if it were a development property. And they're paying something for one example. So there was discussion of like, could that rate change? There was discussion of is there a punitive rate and like things like that. And that's when you look into
So it's like carrots and sticks.
yeah.
And that would be an example of a stick that, and it's really the will of the city council on issues like that, but I think it's worth looking further into that. To look at what's been the practice in other cities that have experimented with that. Has it been effective? Did it get them where they needed to go? I mean, I don't think that generally you want to use sticks just, indiscriminately. You want to be really careful about them. But that's one that I'm familiar with.
And Main Street America had responded to this question by saying, if there is some positive momentum that is kind of happening, before those people jump on the boat, eventually people like success, right? And they will eventually, most of them come along for the ride.
Well, one question that we've also been battling is, do we do like the public infrastructure, the streetscape first? Does that get more interest from developers
even if just one developer decided to do a really good project, would that get people to do more projects and then we do the public infrastructure, you know? Yeah, yeah.
Well, given the fact that it takes a long time to get infrastructure projects done, I think it's always a good idea if you can to set the table. Because it just, I think it gets the attention of the investors. And maybe it's the case, I know that like we did a TOD forum in February of 2022 or 23, February 23, and one of the sponsors was a development company, wind development. I'm not sure if they're doing any projects in Providence now, but they're Massachusetts based. And I think that they wanted to do more work. So we were happy to have them come and network. Yes, well, actually, what I'm gonna do is suggest if you go to our webpage, there's a tab for events. You can drop down to the TOD event. You'll see all the sponsors, but also you'll see all the content. And we have videos. We had a panel that included folks from Pawtucket Central Falls, Warwick. We actually had the mayor from Brockton, Massachusetts, in part because the keynote speaker was the head of the Massachusetts Economic Development Agency that has really spearheaded TOD work and providing incentives to communities and to developers. And it would be worth your while if you're interested in this topic to spend a little bit of time listening to what the mayor from Brockton says, because they've actually been able to advance a lot of TOD. And that was deliberate to have him come and talk to some of our other mayors. And there's a lot of other resources on that page.
Oh,
Yeah.
there was also a forum on Main Street last November, which has a page, there's also links to resources.
Yeah.
And that's all of those.
Yeah.
Yep.
About this idea of developers, property owners just hanging on to a piece of land and doing nothing with it. That's such a common problem everywhere. Like, what motivates somebody to hold on to a piece of property if they don't have plans? Or are they kind of just thinking of it as an investment that will appreciate over time, and at some point the market, right? They'll do something.
Because they perceive that the value is going to increase, and maybe they feel that it's not presently valued high enough. And so they don't wanna sell low. So they wanna maybe, depending on how old they are, or whether they're intending to pass it on to kids. But if they perceive that in 15 years, North Main Street is gonna take off, then they're gonna wanna be selling closer to that point in which it takes off.
So you may have somebody who would be willing to buy a development, but not
Yeah.
to pay what the owner perceives.
Which really speaks to the point about disincentives to hanging on to it, and those should be tools that the city, if that's really a problem, it sounds like it is, it seems like that would be one thing the city might want to be considering.
Other questions or comments for John or John? Thoughts, comments? Okay, do I need to send it to the public have questions to him? Yeah, and if you could say your name clearly.
Yeah, it's Cameron. Very good to hear you speak on the first time. I'm very interested in understanding your perspective beyond Providence. Speaking really of the whole urbanized area, Providence County and Kent County and how, partnerships and especially when it comes to Providence Avenue, this bit about getting, the trunk lines of the 12, the 8, and 8 and 12, call for the fantastic plan. I mean, in reality, those areas would have serious noise changes. That's going to come down to the cities and board grants and like that. How do you think it's best approachable, or has it been done to approach these municipalities in concert? That's a TOD developable area, as well as transporting, for example, like sort of to me the last end of the stroke in private.
Right.
So, okay, I guess it's interesting to hear you speak more about that.
So
So-
definitely do that, and then also for future questions, if we can keep it kind of centered on North Main,
Yeah,
this
sure.
could
Yeah.
go, like.
Yeah, no, I
Cambridge
can keep
Bell's a
it-
big
I can
topic,
keep it
yeah.
brief, but that was the purpose of hosting that forum and bringing in, some, maybe, some of the less likely or less well-known, opportunities in the state. And so, but, you know, in Pawtucket Central Falls, they are seeing investment. It's a significant amount of investment. If you haven't had a chance to drive around their station, yeah, take a look, there's stuff going on. Same is true for Warwick. But I think that the reason that there's such opportunity is because we're fortunate that we've got a statewide transit system. And, it's got a pretty good reach. So the number we've used is that 77% of our state's population can walk out their front door and be at a transit stop within 10 minutes. And that doesn't mean that the transit stop you get to has frequency, high frequency, you know, but the point is that the existing network is already there. We need to invest in the transit master plan to have that level of service. That's what's gonna help drive the opportunity, and that's why North Main Street is one of the better candidates, because it's already on the R line with 10-minute service. Now, it'd be great, there's a map tool that, I don't know if you all heard of Jarrett Walker, he's a transit expert, he was a speaker here a few years ago, but he does these maps, the term for it, where you take a point where you live, and then isochrome map, I think it's called, where it shows you where you get within 15 minutes or half an hour or an hour. So they're sort of considered the wall around your life.
Yeah.
Right, so can you get to the grocery store? Can you get to your job? Can you get to your house of worship? Can you go visit Aunt Millie, who may live a little further away? But it's that sort of that map. And the more that we invest in the transit system, the more of these opportunities become available, or become more attractive, frankly, to private sector.
Is that like an interactive thing? Like, are those maps interactive online, or is he just publishing?
If you were to Google isochrome map transit, you'll see a bunch of examples. I don't think that
I mean, you can make them in GIS and stuff.
Right.
But I don't know if this was like, someone could go and just click.
Yeah, there might be, as I think that, he's made them where like, he was, this is Jarrett Walker saying, like, when they were looking for their new office location, they did put the point down in the map to see how transit accessible it was. And they use that data and making decisions, like all businesses should.
Yeah.
Too often, we have businesses that move out of the downtown, and then they call RIPTA, you know, the next month, and they say, where's our bus? You know, and they want to change the system to meet their decision to have moved away. And that's not how it works. So that's where those maps can be really handy. I wish there was a better, maybe Zach, you'd have some.
Rachel, I think.
What is our,
Yeah.
because I mean, like, I've made maps like that for something in Providence for like grad school class. So like, I know how you can make them, you know, but it'd be interesting to see what's out there.
Also want to acknowledge the fact that we're amazing enthusiasts.
I also that please know that there's a public meeting here, because the door was locked. So I
Oh,
don't
thank
know
you.
if there are other people who trying to get in, but we did plus.
Oh, yikes, thank you, Rebecca.
John, this time we're heard from Bob.
If you say your name.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dylan Johnson. We heard from Bob, this didn't actually the first, notification on grant involved with the task force we heard. There already is an overlay up to the on Main Street, there already is a bus line with, you know, the frequency. So what if, and Bob basically was very candid and said, you know, we haven't seen much come of it. So what, in your opinion, what are the main factors in how we should rate like street safety?
He said the last part about the.
In your opinion, you know, what would be the factors to why that's doing like it's not?
And if I'm not mistaken, I was looking at the, just correct me if I'm wrong. That the TOD I marked it off there, right at the northern tip, right? Yeah. Well, I mean, I think sometimes it's availability. Are the properties available? Is there a significant enough property where somebody wanted to do 150 or 200 unit development? Can you, it looked like some of those parcels were kind of small and they'd be grouped together. That'd be one thing. And I think that it's, in some ways, it's a little bit like sales, right? I mean, we know there's developers who do this work and they want to make money doing it. And if you've got the opportunity for that to happen here, actually approaching them.
Yeah.
And presenting them with the opportunity.
We heard from a property owner who said, I will build here today if the street were not in dangerous condition. So I'm curious.
Oh,
The street safety.
I got it. So in other words, well, that takes to the point that you brought up, Jeff, about making the investment in the infrastructure first as a way to set the table. I think that's always, if we can do it, it's always a positive thing. And today, there being so much money available federally, through, SS4A, and there's so much infrastructure money available. We still have to have the match. But
So not to forget about the people part of the equation.
Yeah.
Because people help make a place, and so with some intentional investment and support for people to do things that even if they are starting really small, they're like, that is also part of
events or
events
Yeah.
and, planting, litter cleanups, whatever it is, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just
Oh,
wanted,
that is, yeah.
so, I've heard Renee and comments about kind of the situation on the roadway. Part of the alternatives analysis we're undertaking does require us to actually look at the alignment and kind of what the right of way could look like in the more practical sense. I know the North Main Street corridor study kind of looked at some possibilities, but very high, but not at the detail level from here. In order for us to develop a cost estimate for our project, we do need to do some level. So throughout the next couple of months, as we're going through the scenarios and options, if you have feedback about what you envision this particular segment of the road would be, as we kind of figure out how we fit these particular transit elements and how we improve last and first amount of access to dependent stops, it would be very helpful to hear from this type of others. At the end of the day, we want to go flat and you guys can stay in problem and right on to make sure that we all can fit this in. So I'm happy to entertain the feedback.
because your point would be that if you have the charge to do some of that preliminary engineering, that can become very helpful when it comes to applying for the implementation money.
Yeah, I can go up to 15%.
Yeah.
It can start with pretty good pace.
And the safety action plans is not relevant to this, correct? Because
So Providence is not participant in the state process, but that doesn't mean that we're not taking
Yeah.
the streets material.
Well, and we're also updating our great streets plan.
So everything is in the city.
We've got a lot of stuff.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much.
Any other final questions for them? Okay, thank you so much. We've reached the time for public comment, so maybe some of you have given a public comment, but maybe you haven't, and if you signed in, I've been calling you, yeah. I one day. Yeah. Can I please have a motion to enter this as exhibit one? And exhibit one, I'll make the motion. Thank you, Jack. Any second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay. And so this is also on the portal. So folks, if you want to go back and watch the video, definitely do that. And then some amazing resources on the Grow Smart website. So I'm going to spend my weekend doing that and being really excited about it. And last but not least, please read item 3 into the record. Public comment. Excellent. Gonna mix it up and start from the bottom. Rant, you get to go first this time. It's your time for public comment.
The fourth one is now, I'm going fourth one.
No, we can go in any order. I'd love to hear, because you didn't get to give public comment last time, and make sure you have plenty of time.
I'm thinking more. Yeah.
You can sit or stand, whatever makes you most comfortable. But use your outdoor voice because the AC is quite loud.
Comment I made early on, when we go, with one simply removes sewer. On 130 Street. Temporarily. With my experience is then you have to sign it up for maybe a couple weeks, and you can put a couple of patrol cars out there. This is getting communicated very quickly. And that is all it is, because it's speed. Speed is speed. Now, the other thing is, as we all know, on Queen Street is on bridges involved in our line, which is, you know, rapid. What if the decided makes the buses go quicker was by eliminating bus stops. So along the R line, along the Main Street, they eliminated every other bus stop. So as a transit rider, regular transit rider, that will not make the bus trip go quicker. It does make the bus trip go quicker, and you start doing this, and all of a sudden it's going to just stop. Was the remote control devices, the driver pad, that light is green, kind of like green, green, it'll stay green. So the bus can go through. Won't change red to green, you don't want that. But it'll stay green for the bus to continue. All right, so start getting those out, and then stop. And so I don't know if any buses have them now, we just did some years ago. But all buses should have it. We're making, and we need to go bus stop back. One more Main Street, there's a bus stop on 3rd Street, next bus stop is 9th Street. You go back in another direction, they have before 3rd Street, you're going outbound. The bus stop before that is Ocean Lab. The one before that is Cypress. The one before that is Doyle Ave. The one before that is University Heights. Here's the one before that is the old State House. So if you're going outbound and then leaves Candy Plaza, goes up to the train station, goes back down to North Main, picks up people, the old State House, in front of the old State House, the next bus stop is University Heights. Does that make any sense at all? No. A huge distance down the hill. The reason we think they're old and out as far as left. Anyway, I'll stop there, and I know the most of the connections as far as POV is concerned.
You want to share it, Britt?
Another, I'll come in another meeting.
Oh, you can, okay. And I think, Zach, do you want to share some things? Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna, I apologize for proceeding on this, but when I heard TSC, I thought it would be a focus, jump in. I've been working very extensively with RIDOT, with the city of Providence, with the city of Kentucky on transit and fire to Grand Point. We've had it on the R lines since 2014. It was using primarily infrared systems. You know, we're still very early days of our technology, relied pretty much on straight vision. So if there was a tree blocking the sensor, it would not work even if there was sunlight. We're in the process of things to make assisting in getting the mayor's approval and right on getting the DD's approval and the mayor Gravy and Tuckett. We now have the approval to move forward with implementing GPS-based TSD, which really just relies on GPS systems, the moves, build visibility, the move street one sensors, and it's actually far more reliable. And we've been able to work with all the cities and with RIDOT on a systematic approach that allows us to get the right balance of recognizing the road we're operating on, the Broad Street or more Main Street in particular, having that right balance. And so, you know, we have their approval on the plan, so working with the engineering for fine tuning to make sure there's still that much balance. But we've done our calculations, and the R line, which has experienced some level of degradation on high quality. Some of that is due to TSB, some of that is due to other attractive phenomena. You should see a noticeable difference hopefully by the end of this year. We're just trying to sell it now. As for the bus stops, you know, the R line is the unique situation is. And, you know, I recognize not every person is able to reach every single stop in the network, whether it's far line distances. But some of the rationale behind the distances between our lines to enable us to still provide that headway. That means if we saw every single block, all the upgrades, whether it's TSV or given a bus and what have you, we would lose all the efficiency in servicing. So it wouldn't really be a 10-minute service anymore, but it'd be a 12-minute service, 15 minutes. And so you degrade. So there is that balance, but I do recognize that I think some of this also relies on us to work with the city, with Ride and others to improve the accessibility and the comfort of our stops. Like I will be the first one, Ron, I know, hit like and cross our mention on numerous occasions that our stops are not pleasant. So that I think does help prove. I'm not saying it solves every issue. And as for the hill, we can't stop the bus. I'm not putting the bus up. Stop.
That wasn't my.
No, but I'm just using that as an example. The distance between the bottom, I know there's a stop at the bottom of the hill, but the distance of the stop behind it is still.
What?
The stop behind it, the one closer towards Rock Williams, that distance is still too close to the distances of the car. And that's that weird thing, your photos.
Yeah, the hill is the best.
Plays up at stops. So. I get it, I know this is a personal thing, girls, I'm not gonna make it fun for saying, yeah, we have a guy.
Thank you, Zach, I appreciate that. Okay, thank you. How about, if people signed up, Alex?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh my God, because I get many 1,000 times, what is this for? Yeah.
Alex, the other, what we call it, I do want to point out that about 2 weeks ago, we came to the Harris Breath of the fatality on North Main Street, where, I'm not sure if you've heard about it. I was not aware that the internal, or not at the tailgate bus stop, but just about 10 yards north of it, where a utility truck, some sort of work truck, just slammed into 2 utility poles of a tree. Had that tree not been in the way, there's a good chance it would just continue on the sidewalk. The bus stop is right there. There's also pretty regular basis, there's no sleeps in that bus stop, it's more or less taking up sheltered area. So there's a good chance of a lot of hours, so basically people waiting there all the time. So it is, but basically by the grace of God, mourning another loss. You know, Councilwoman brought up at the start of the meeting that utility poles are expensive, and I think we lost 2 in that.
Yeah, I'm looking into like how those are being replaced, because that was clearly, anyway, he clearly caused that, and it's on video.
Well, it's insurance company.
Yeah, so it could be,
Sure, utility.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, just follow. It costs a massive, like you lose a tree to just investment, because that tree is probably like 30 years old. Yeah, it's providing a lot of shade on the area that doesn't have a lot of shade to begin with. And that's the reason I come to these meetings, is because I walk along Main Street in the morning, the evenings, and it is very long time to see, you know, somebody's went onto the sidewalk.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I was wondering, you mentioned that there's some progress being made. Is there anything worth signaling or setting up? Oh, sorry, signal. So the pedestrian signals are quite short in a lot of the intersections. I know only in particular are too short for a lot of kids to cross on time. So the ones that go to like junior, only in one game.
Only in North Main?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I know, I wish Sean would hear his application, he apologizes to everyone. There are a few of these signals that he is actively working on, so when he's back, we should. I'm sorry that.
Yeah, because my coworker, she has 3 young children too, who go to MK, and in the mornings they actually have to wait on that little island that most man like 70 wide, just because it's small lakes, so they can't go. Is there anything in terms of things like moving slip lanes, with Jersey barriers, or narrowing lanes, or anything like that? Is that in particular at the intersection of Grand Oil or Maine, like people just fly to the top speed, and with those slip lanes, they're really encouraged. To go through, or even.
So that was one of the recommendations that went before the traffic commission, to change the lanes right there. So Sean will be able to describe exactly what was approved, because he's done that meeting, but that is the exact thing that we're recommending, particularly for that, like both by Jerry's Argonama and then also the cross or Scranton. So if Sean were here, he could very eloquently describe what will be changed, but that was the recommendation, was changing the speed at that intersection.
I'm not sure if that's the same thing that Alex. Talking about the, like the legitimate turning lanes for the people who go onto the shoulder to make a turn.
Because there already currently are slip lanes that.
There are some, like,
Right, so
I
then,
also encourage people to just kind of go.
Right.
Fast, because it's like, well, why should I slow? I've seen, for example, the yield sign for it.
Yeah.
Because people just don't slow down. So it's pretty smart, if you close that slip lane down, it reminds people this is not an all right, obviously, on different. It's just like, I mean, we talked about it, well, how many premises we made street.
Yeah.
And the first thing is people really have to feel safe there. There's a lot of ways and maybe talk about accuracy. Making the streets narrower, posing off a lot of these sort of dangerous, turns. The other turn lane you brought up is the right turn lane going, northbound, so it's the whole plaza, but
Yeah.
that's this super long turn lane.
Yeah,
And the green light does actually overlap with pedestrian walk signals. When I cross that street, I more or less have to stare backwards when I'm going.
yeah,
Because it's such a long distance that people who are going through, they'll turn right.
yeah.
I've been stranded at, I have a walk signal, I'm just waiting because there's like 15 cars.
Yeah, so we did discuss with Sean and they, like, could we move that to shorten the length? And that wasn't something we could do immediately through the traffic commission that looked at the other things. But I can talk to Sean about that crossing time and we could, if he wants turning right. And I'll talk to Sean about that. Like, we talked, like, it was the part of moving that arm. was,
Yeah,
Like, was
I think he was also
the
talking,
50 mark, yeah.
he was also talking about the length of that right turn. So it
Yeah,
doesn't need to
yeah,
be
yeah.
that long.
Yeah.
Maybe we can narrow the road shorter.
So many
Says
people
traffic
speed,
coming in.
Yeah, get to there.
like they speed up
That-
Doyle.
yeah.
And so if that turn can be slowed down, maybe it could help with
Yeah, you want
the
to
speeding up Doyle too.
Right. And
so you should.
I think that at least the right turn lane on North Main Street northbound at Doyle, that those definitely in the RSA. So
Yeah.
let's discuss it.
do we have any data that tells us, like, do we even need a third lane there? Like, is it justified by the amount of traffic? Because other
Yeah.
intersections just have two.
Um, I mean, they've studied that. Got a capacity analysis in terms of they did traffic counts. I don't know if they did in the RSA, but I'm sure that's come up a couple times.
To be honest, that sort of analysis is just going to kind of justify whatever decision you want to make, because create a turn lane, people will use it anyway.
Well, no, I guess my question is, like, we have other intersections where we have two lanes of traffic, one of them is not a designated turn lane.
Yeah.
And some people turn from that lane, some go straight, and we don't have traffic backup, so I'm just wondering if the volume is low enough that
Yeah,
we can handle all of that with just two lanes.
Yeah, I'm sure it's been done, at least because that intersection was studied a few times.
So, but can we like?
So,
pull that and kind of
yeah,
make it-
that's so you would see how many right turns there are. You could model it in terms of one lane, 2 lanes versus 3, and see what the backup.
Would that be a project like for you or for Ride Out?
That's a signal that they maintain, so yeah, it would probably,
So,
yeah, it would probably be a request to, yeah. Not necessarily RSA, I mean, we could just make a request in there, so.
Well, like, I think that how many turns are happening is partly the design of Doyle, right? Because Doyle is so wide. People use that to come through the neighborhood. So it's like, if that were designed differently, probably not as many people would choose that. Just as not being choose to live on Doyle.
Yeah, sure. I live at that.
But you
Could
do,
be.
or used to.
I did.
Oh, I also do.
Possibly, I mean, if you narrow it, as people use Doyle. Maybe.
But it's so wide.
Right,
like,
they're gonna use other streets,
Yeah.
it might,
So they're just
but,
We might-
only,
yeah, they're gonna go.
I do, but I would say I have a lot of complaints. Not on this Main Street, the next four-way intersection, you can't control it, there are a lot of complaints, speed related stops. And it's pervasive in that whole.
Yeah,
We're just-
Yeah.
I know exactly what you're talking about. That one's especially right because they're in school right there. I think it's a good decision to run it one way during the school year, during school hours. I think it'll also be a great decision just to generally kind of discourage people cutting through there. Because there's the speed bumps down. But ideally, if we could just, basically make it, I don't know exactly what the solution is, but discourage people from using it. From cutting the can to, we're just speeding.
We gotta keep it open because it's, so we can't drop off. Pick it up, so,
Yeah.
But Nate's put in speed bumps now. So
Yeah, I mean, that may help, I mean, we're putting it on camp, but I mean,
Yeah,
probably we get a lot, is just people not stopping.
yeah, that's what I've always.
I don't
Yeah,
stand
people
watching.
will-
Yeah.
And we had, I mean, we had someone killed there too.
No, there's a flashing light there, it's not a full signal. And, so traffic count may help there, they slow people down.
Yeah.
But if you're too aggressive, you just push the problem,
Yeah,
right?
we can push it to another street, well, or they stay on the street, but they just go slow.
Only they did some stuff on like a few years ago, and it's still bad, but it's a little better.
Yeah.
Than it used to be, and people still do blow through only, like, they more down
yeah.
enough, but it's a little better than it was. Yeah, Alex, you want to finish a couple times?
Yeah.
Really?
It's just honestly, we have a really good map of this area right now, they just finished repaving only, so, but they have repainted it, so the bike lanes are gone, so the road is actually going.
Yeah.
And I've noticed there's a big difference in speed, people are less likely to stop looking across. So it's, even something as simple as putting in bike lanes on both sides, suddenly you have people parking more, more towards the center of the road, so drivers are discouraged from speeding because, to be honest, a lot of people, when they drive, and that slows them down is the idea of they're distracted car. Even something as simple as like putting in bike lanes might also help. And, my thing is just if we can slow people down, they'll adapt.
And those lanes are going back in, it
Yeah,
was just rearranged.
Yeah, that was a-
Right?
utility company restoration. We gave them the plans of what to restrike, and they should be restricted.
I'm gonna use the list and then, do you have a question? on what they're-
Do you have a timeline for getting the feedback on only? Sorry.
I don't, it should be, I've been asking them, if, when you do pave a road, you have to wait at least a couple weeks.
Right.
For the oil this way, because we think that thing, so, and I think it's probably been about a couple weeks, we'll check.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we strike that, and then once they do that, we'll put back the flex posts.
Thanks.
Dylan,
Yes.
and you track your way because you're right.
Then child students coalition, I talked to all, I think, January, or February visual, where they got. So. We're thinking that between time, there was another college Main Street that's called David Lynch. He 63 was killed at North, and so looking at another. Well, having another, we scheduled the vigil on the 15th of August. We all your invited as well as all members of the public. Will be 5 p.m. Meeting at North Burial Ground. Will also be possibly going to the different locations that are all roughly within walking distance for the locations of the four big columns that have the lots.
Thank you. And last but not least, we've got Cameron.
Yes. So here, so. I'd like to just ask of you two, has there been any, talk or debate or strategy in terms of expanding speed cameras outside of school zones in response to fatalities specifically? And I don't know, it is like. So as an ordinance to be able to set up speed cameras.
Yeah, so people brought that up that it's a state law, so that would be a question we'd want to work with our state representatives on, because the state law says you can only use speed cameras in a certain radius from schools. So we have to amend state law to do that. Which is not impossible.
Yeah, it's totally not impossible. I will share that in the balancing of things. I think there are legitimate concerns about having cameras everywhere and having our everywhere recorded. So I think it's an important conversation to have. And I think it's,
Yeah, but something to keep driving about, yeah.
But in the meantime, under current state law, we have a 1/4 mile radius around the school, I believe, right? So some of the areas we were just talking about, like Lee, and Doyle, like that would be within the radius of MLK. Unfortunately, North Main Street falls
Not.
just barely, but I checked this, the closest point was 50 feet outside of the 1/4 mile radius. So if anybody wants to start a school on North Main Street.
Yeah, anything counts.
We're, glad to have some clarity about that. Could also ask, has there, I didn't quite hear as well from the center, has there been, plans, narrowing of intersections? Just the well?
So right now, the traffic commission has looked at Doyle and looked at some specific recommendations specific to Doyle. Because of the like extreme danger on Doyle, like, just to be totally frank, like Doyle is incredibly unsafe. And so that was, we made some specific requests, that the mayor co-signed, which is great, and, specific to Doyle, but I think the longer corridor will be part of this like STIP. RIPTA looking at it, like us, that's part of why this group was brought together, like there are these other longer term planning processes for like how we look at how we fix the infrastructure on North Main, and so I think that's part of why we're all here with RIPTA and write-up and planning to come together, because some of that takes more time and money. Where some of like, we're trying to like both do things we can do short term and just do them, like the lights, like Doyle. I'm pointing like Sean's here, which is not, but I'm like, here's Sean, here he is, love him so much. Knowing that some of this takes like a little bit of time, to actually get some of those.
And on that note, we're waiting for RIDOT to provide an amendment to the STIP, which I heard August or September would be coming. So once that process happens, that's when we can get access to that money.
Okay, so maybe that's like us following up with RIDOT to picture that.
I have a meeting tomorrow in which I will continue asking. Yes.
I will try for mine, we'll see. Yeah, like it keeps being like, the STIP amendment's coming, and it hasn't come, so.
So is it not, are closing simply it's not on the table or? Response to that's the redone?
So at Doyle, that's some of the lane changes were some of the things that were being looked at. There are some other slip lanes. So we've also made Rochambeau no right on red. So that wasn't a slip lane, but that was people turning it into a slip lane because they were turning right on red. I think we can talk about some of the other slip lanes that exist. Branch would probably require some like actual changes to infrastructure, not just Jersey barriers.
Yeah, you have to pull everything back because of trucks coming on and off of the roadway.
So that one I would love to just slap Jersey barrier there, but I think there would be some actual changes.
Well, they are.
Yeah, planter would be lovely, yeah, some lovely things like that. So I think like a lot of that ended up in the RSA, so that could be a follow-up with Sean of like what is now versus what is part of this longer term process with medium term. The RSA has stuff that's like immediate, which is next 6 months, near term, I'm gonna get the terminology wrong. Near term, which is like 6 months to a year, and then longer term is like 2 or 3 years or more. So I think we're trying to do as much as we can in the time that we have.
In terms of city owned park with land, is there been heard by about coordinating, your existing rolling stock of equipment to be able to daylight some of these intersections, because I mean, the reality is, it's like a lot of these, not just intersections, mid-block crossings, don't have any drivers can still go through these areas. I think it seems very trivial to me putting a baller by across. Is there an effort to be doing this sort of thing in the immediate term before the RSA happens? I mean, I hate to say it. But
Yeah.
the reality is that we're likely to see another death about that.
Yeah.
Before the RSA.
Yeah, no, I'm totally here with you. And I think Nate, I'll let you answer, but I think you've done a lot of that on the part, right? Like, there's the light across, anyway.
Yeah, I mean, we the city maintained part of, North Main Streets from Randall to South. So, we just talked about daylighting and crosswalks and then significant physical barrier, give 20, 30 feet from the crosswalk, so for 20 feet from 25 feet from, intersection corners, yeah, I mean, that's something we talked about. Look at striping, I think more effectively. Would be putting it some type of, flex post or something that would actually, yeah. It's something we talked about, we just need to actually. Initiate that
Yeah,
and,
maybe if it's possible, like, we could crowdsource some methods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
Yeah, please send me anything
I
by
think that
email.
would be helpful, for community members to think about places that, you know, could. God, what's cost, that doesn't,
Yeah, no.
doesn't take long to put it,
No.
I think that's an easy.
20 minutes, yes.
Yeah.
And city owns stuff that requires to go, begging, meetings, the very long, but.
Yeah. And I'm trying to find out what needs to be approved by the traffic commission versus like what Ride Act can just do, because there's some stuff that they've just been doing, like putting up the no turn on red sign, or like there's some stuff they've been able to just go ahead with. And then there's some things like these lane changes of Doyle that they needed express permission, so I'm trying to figure out what we can just do. So if there are things where you guys crowdsourcing, like, we would love to daylight, you know, whatever, this intersection or whatever. We can push into what can just be done versus like what they, and the traffic commission does meet every month, so if there are things like that. Some of this is in the RSA, so we can say, like, this is in the RSA, can we do that? Like, I'm happy to make those requests of the traffic commission, I can send in letters, like, that's a thing we can do, that's something maybe we could do as a task force, it's like co-sign, whatever, but like. Yeah, because we can't have any more deaths, and we are. There will be more if we don't do something.
I would say it was, right, I don't even understand the city, but still the city process, still.
Yeah, different areas.
But moving back. The lines. Stop. But in the sense of like, moving back where. A lot of people retreat towards the crosswalk, for
Okay.
example, or walk the crosswalk, and I often, you know, make hellos or I'm blocking my way. Maybe we can do that in Providence. I don't know whether it's worth it, doing research or data. There could be sorts of ideas from. Could be the biggest thing for.
Yeah.
I'm appreciative of the here.
And really, one of the tools that we look at, when we look at making it crosswalk safe, is actually, is actually, you can put a yield line. 20 more feet away from that. That's just standard sign yield pedestrians here. You know, that's one of the graduated, tools we use to pedestrian safety. I think the place. They probably have it at Buckman at, University Heights and on Dyer Street from, yeah, it's like the street, park there, did that, so that is a tool you can do. To see it, sort to be one. Yeah.
Great, well, very excited about this.
Thank you so much, and send anything, please email me anytime.
Absolutely.
Ginny, you have.
Yeah, sorry, I wanted to dig into the informal slip lane turning thing. You made a comment about version open that kind of
Yeah.
partially addressed by the new turn on red. I don't actually feel like the new turn on red sign addresses that specific problem, for two reasons. One, we still have a lot of people just continuing to turn on red. But even when the light is green, people don't stay in the lane and make the right turn. They kind of swerve off onto the shoulder and make a sharp, fast turn. And if you're, I guess, at Rochambeau, that's somewhat been addressed by the exclusive pedestrian phase. At least theoretically, you shouldn't have a current phase situation with pedestrians crossing when there's a fast turning car. But regardless, at most of the northern intersections, you have that open kind of place where people can park, and if nobody's parked, it's a fast turning lane. And I don't for the life of me understand why we haven't yet just put a concrete barrier in those spots. Because there's an easy, or whatever the object is, but there's an easy way to make somebody slow down and make the turn. And I know this has come up a few times at these meetings, and I want to put Sean on the spot because he's not here. But I think it would be good if we can maybe have a more explicit conversation with Sean and try to get an answer on, like, is that something that would have to be before the commission? Is that something that right off because they don't put barrier? I feel like we still don't have clarity on that question. This many months on that, to me, that felt like the low hanging fruit in the beginning. It's like we do this next week. just to put some objects there.
Yeah.
So let's like try to maybe by the next meeting, find out like, is that on the table? If it's not, what else, what's the other intervention that we can do that hopefully doesn't take 5 years to implement?
Yeah. that's good. Okay, that was all we had for public comment. Does anyone else want to say anything before we? And as a reminder, just we don't meet in August, but I'll work with Claire and Presley to get our calendar set up for September and October. So we'll get that out next little bit of time. And as I mentioned last time, we're gonna reach out to everyone in the meantime, just have a one-on-one, two-on-one, whatever, season planning. So feel free to reach out to me anytime, but we won't have a formal meeting in August, then one month recess. Oh, yeah.
You talked about like the lane changes on Doyle because of that went to the traffic commission. Like, how can we see that?
Yeah, I'll ask Sean to share that, when he's back from vacation. He was originally
Is there a way that you can see it?
Yeah, it's probably
in
on
our
their like website, but I don't understand how I'm just super real, I don't understand how the traffic commission works. It is a publicly noticed meeting, so it should be on the Secretary of State's website, what was, like, all the documents should be there. But I'll ask Sean to even just write something up that makes sense, and, like in English, and, try and share that with the meetings. In a way that doesn't break one, and will be BCP and tweet that. That's a great question, though. I wasn't there. I know people post things that they got approved, but I wasn't at the meeting, so I don't want to like misspeak and be on the record and speaking about what got approved.
It should be on the meetings board.
Yeah, it'll be on the Secretary of State. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, Dylan will share it around, and I will also get it in English from Sean.
Are you allowed to give us a heads up, for things like that?
Oh,
Sure, like,
and
we
it's
might-
publicly noticed and stuff, but yeah, I can totally. That was a
So
little.
at least people in the task force, if we know about it, we can.
Yeah, you can
show up or
go.
not, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah, I can definitely, the next time I know. It's better. Cool. If there's nothing else around the table, then motion to adjourn. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Yeah, nobody was opposed. I mean, it was declared kind of clear again.
I think question is regulatory.
Thank you. Like, right.
Right, then we're.